Our religion helps to tell a person how to live their lives. It helps teach them morals and how to lead a healthy life. Our religion many times will also tell its followers to have certain diets and eat certain foods. It is this concept of religion and food that poses an interest. Now to narrow that focus to SUNY Geneseo, does the campus compensate for students of various religions to live and eat as they want to? And what do these students have to adapt to food-wise coming to this school? Our first step in finding out about religion and food on campus was to interview those who were willing to speak with us. After a few weeks, we had gotten responses from many people, including Abigail and Eunice, who were both Seventh-day Adventist Christians. The following is some of the interview that we conducted with them.
Okay, so we're Seventh-day Adventist Christians, and we observe the Sabbath, which is the seventh day, and keep it holy. So that's the seventh day part of it. And then we're Adventists in that we are looking for the second advent of Jesus Christ coming back on earth to take us home to our promised land. We believe that cleanliness is next to holiness. So the Lord has given us health laws or rules in the kinds of foods that we should and should not eat. And this is all in order for us to keep our bodies healthy and fit and running. And if we look at, and as Seventh-day Adventists, we practice the health message, which is based in the Bible. And the Bible describes 3 types of diet. So first we have unacceptable, then we have the acceptable, and then we have the ideal. So the unacceptable and acceptable diets can basically be found in Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy 14. These 2 books are found in the Old Testament of the Bible. And here God describes the kinds of clean and unclean meat that we should eat. So, and also he also gives the distinction between the meats. So if we look at Deuteronomy chapter 14 verse 4, the Lord lists some animals that we can eat. For example, I have the cow, the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the antelope. And then he gives the distinction of the clean animal. And he says that we may eat any animal with cloven hooves, and having a hoof that is split in 2 parts, and that chews the cud. Now, the ideal diet is the diet that was originally established by God in the beginning, in the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve. And Genesis 1 verse 29 describes that every herb that yields seed and trees whose fruits have seed, and green herbs are the foods that we can eat. So basically like apples, nuts, grains, those are the types of
fruits, vegetables?
Yes, fruits and vegetables. Those are the types of foods that we should eat.
Like enemies.
Yes, and so those are the 3 types of diet. And as Adventists, we strictly believe in these diets, and we make them, we use them in our everyday life.
If you look at the Adventist health message, one thing that distinguishes the Adventist health message from other health messages that other faith groups or Christian groups might have is that the Adventist health message is holistic, meaning that we believe what happens to your body affects the mind, and what happens to your mind affects the body, vice versa. So, for example, it says in the Bible, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might, with all thy strength, right? So we believe that, therefore, we're not just being healthy for the sake of being healthy, like, okay, we have a healthy body and like, yeah, bam, look at me, like, that's how, the reason that we're striving to be healthy is because it will draw us that much closer to God. There are Adventists who eat meat, and then there are Adventists who are vegetarian or vegan. So Abby is, she is
acceptable diet.
she's still, like, she eats meat, but then,
yes,
she's gonna share a
I'm
little
striving for the ideal diet where I don't eat, meat and pork. I mean, meat and beef. But, yes, I'm striving to be like Eunice here, who's a
I'm vegan,
yeah.
so, like, as you can see, there's the health message is also progressive in that, like, it's not like, we present the health message to people and then all of a sudden, like, bam, you gotta be vegan tomorrow. And the whole point is that we want to have our bodies healthy so that we can have this relationship with God that's strengthened, not weakened because of what we do. So. Like, Cass has been accommodating a little bit here and there. They're getting a little bit better. There's still definitely a lot of things that can be done, but at least they're starting to move it down. Actually, one of the ways that I'm working with Cass to help provide more options is because I work at Letchworth.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, it's very convenient actually. And when I came back to school, I took a year off of school to do some ministry, came back, and I felt very strongly about not serving food that I myself didn't feel comfortable eating, right? So I told the boss that, you know, I feel convicted that I shouldn't be serving pork, and not even just pork, but like junk food, you know, because it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So then I asked her, like, hey, are there any vegan or vegetarian positions to make the food? And I suggested to her that I do a vegan trial, pretty much. And so what we're working on right now at Letchworth is making food that is vegan, it's healthy, and it's also tasty.
There are certain types of foods that I eat on campus versus different types of foods that I eat at home. And I think a strong part of this is because of there's also a cultural aspect to this, in that I'm from Ghana, and a lot of the foods that we eat are like fresh vegetables. If we're making soup, we tend to use, you know, fresh fruits and things like that, and vegetables to make our products. And we use like a lot of the meals that we eat are like rice-based and some starch and things like that. So versus like campus food where it's like more Americanized and like French fries and like hamburgers and stuff like that. At home, I don't really eat, you know, that kind of way. Yeah, the same way.
Another Geneseo student whom we interviewed was Toby Ring, who was a kosher Jew.
I'm a conservative Jew, so a lot of people keep kosher. Being kosher, the most basic definition, or what I could say about it, is that it would divide, you divide your foods into meat, dairy, and parv. Meat being anything that has meat in it. Dairy being your milk, egg, anything that has milk in it, more or less. And parv is things that have neither in them. So like bread, bread as long as it doesn't have milk in it, things like that. So you can't mix milk and dairy in the same meal. And there's restrictions in between how close you can have them. There's also some exceptions for food, like I'm sure a lot of people know pork, so like no ham, bacon. Any animal that has a cloven hoof or doesn't chew its own food, so that includes some of those animals. Camels, weirdly enough, are there too. And also for fish, any fish that doesn't have scales, so shellfish, as per kosher law, you can't eat. Since there is a pretty small Jewish population here, they don't particularly have too much kosher food, although I just found out after I moved off campus that they have kosher chicken in MJ. So that was interesting to know, but I kept vegetarian for the most part, and vegetarian by definition, it would be kosher. So that's how I cook myself. I think possibly having kosher cold cuts, a small selection, but the biggest problem is you have to understand, at least I understand, Cass is a business, and I mean they can't accommodate large amounts of kosher food because kosher food usually is more expensive. It usually has a higher degree of certification needed for cleanliness. All the meat needs to be ritually butchered and slaughtered, so that tends to be more expensive for meat. So we do understand that that's harder to accommodate, and I think Cass, what they're doing with a lot of vegetarian and vegan options, is a great way to incorporate people with dietary restrictions, being that most people that have a dietary restriction probably eat vegan food or something like that. At home, I tend to eat a little bit more meat. I just tend not to eat meat. I never really had much meat on campus. I mean, I'd have a burger or chicken cutlet once in a while. But after keeping, fairly strictly kosher for being at Geneseo for a year or two, I decided that eating meat on campus wasn't the worst thing in the world, and the essence of kosher for me is just eating healthy. One example of it is that you're not supposed to eat shellfish, but I live on Long Island, I live on the water, and sometimes my friends and I will go clamming or we'll go fishing and we get shellfish. And I feel that if it's healthy, fresh food, it really doesn't much matter what it is. And I mean, I've never had pork, but I'd be open to having it if I knew it was good. And I'm really more into good food now than I am strictly kosher food. But I also feel that the restriction between not mixing meat and milk in the same meal keeps you healthier. because you're not going to go have a hamburger and then have some ice cream afterwards. So it's really made me choose between eating meat, which I would consider a little less healthy than I would like, and like more dessert.
We were also contacted by Mike Sauter, the director of the Campus Catholic Ministries, who we met at the Interfaith Center just off of campus. He was very eager to speak with us and was very knowledgeable on Catholicism and its food traditions.
We have fasting during the time of Lent, which means no eating meat on Fridays right now. It used to be all of Lent. Catholics were more or less forbidden to have meat. Now it's seemingly just on Fridays. Yeah, I think the Catholics, some people call Geneseo a Catholic girls' school because it was so highly female, and over the years it's had a disproportionate amount of Catholics. I believe that everybody can get a meatless alternative on Fridays. I believe in one sense we're treated better. Maybe it's just because the culture has been permeated by Christians and a lot of Catholic influence, but I think our dietary requirements are met well, probably better than Jewish and Muslim students on campus. The legalistic understanding of Catholic regulations on fasting, where on Ash Wednesday, for example, the official church says you can have 3 meals, no in-between meal snacks, and the 2 smaller meals shouldn't be larger than the 1 larger meal. And Catholics have lost the notion that what it is when you, over the course of Lent, when you take meat fats and dairy and things like butter and rich oils out of your system, anybody can try it. I would say the mystery of nature. Nature seems to come alive. And it makes you slow down, so actually when you're walking through campus, you're a little more aware of everything. You're almost, because when you're fasting, and fasting really means, honestly, don't eat or drink. But we have people, and there's exceptions, the elderly, the people with eating disorders. But right now the church has officially modified those so much that we've lost the mystery, which is kind of a dietary thing, the mystery of fasting, which is through all of Lent, take out those fats. And the mysteries, it's like you're more in touch with God. And then it used to be Wednesdays and Fridays, and I've done this for years, having not done it since I've had kids because it could make me a little grumpy, and I don't want to take it out on my kids. But I just wouldn't eat or take any beverage on Wednesday and Friday from roughly midnight to midnight. It was a great discipline, and it's not punitive to say bad person. It's really a positive thing, fasting. And again, the best way I could describe it is it makes you very aware that nature's a miracle, and everything's a gift. And you realize that when you do eat, you get back in touch with the mystery. When we have boneless, skinless chicken breast at Wegmans, there's very few people who connect that back to a chicken who had to get murdered. And Christianity and Catholicism are right at the center. It's like a blood and guts thing. That when we have ham, we're supposed to remember that there's a pig that had to get slaughtered for this thing. We've kind of lost that in culture because we go up and we buy these meats. We don't connect them to an animal. One of the levels of mystery in the central Christian mystery of the Eucharist, which reflects the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ, is the fact that we would believe God himself came down. Because men, again, when we'd call them a cave dweller, drew a picture of a bison on a wall in France, most anthropologists, I think, are saying in one sense that was some of it might have been done out of guilt. There's some wild mystery that Christ came and said, now you can partake of me. It's as if God is saying, it's okay. Now, I'm very much in support of vegetarianism. I think animals are treated horribly in the mass market. And I think, though Catholics, we don't have a specific stance on vegetarianism, we, as a social justice thing, should really advocate for treating animals better. But in one sense, the whole Catholic mystery of the Eucharist is founded on what I might call, for the lack of a better term, the mystery of food, that life feeds off of other life. And it would take me a long time to explicate that. But food and that mystery of food is right at the very center of our faith. I think most people we're in a tough economy. A high percentage of people should be tied to the land in some way. Doesn't mean they just have to farm or raise animals. But right now it seems like the Catholic mysteries of Eucharist and even baptism float out in another world because we've lost touch with the very marrow of life, which again, to be repetitive, life feeds off of other life. Something has to die that I live.
What seemed evident to everyone we interviewed was that it did not matter what you believed in or what your religion told you to eat. When it comes down to religion and food, one thing seemed to stand out. The dietary religious guidelines were there to tell people to eat healthy, even though each diet was different. Every person felt that their diet in accordance with their beliefs was what was causing them to have a happy and healthy life, and regardless of what religion it was, that one thing is what remained the same.